Recently, there has been a development within our government, an unfortunate development. And even though my credibility, my integrity has been challenged and shadow has been cast on my characters, however, I would not like to defend myself. As a human being and still a young blood, during my almost 2 decade journey in the Naga struggle, and I being basically from the military setup, from the military formation, we have committed lots of fortunate atrocities while in the battle, while in the conflict, but that was nothing personal, and it was all circumstantial. It was all because of the issue-related conflict-related. I've been through so many hell. I've faced death many times. Many of my comrades before me, besides me, behind me, they have fallen in the battle. We have taken lives of the adversaries, but for the cause. We feel very sorry and we regret for the loss of lives that has incurred all through the struggle. Either friend or enemy, a soldier is to be honored, and therefore I pay my tribute to all the fallen heroes and soldiers, regardless of friends or enemies. Now, I would like to refocus on the few allegations that has been made against me, especially with regard to my personal characters, my personal conduct. I feel convinced and I feel very grateful to my comrades and calm accusers for exposing certain uncomfortable personal issues in the media. Now I realize that in order to represent my people, in order to represent the Nagas, and in order to be true to the calling Nagaland for Christ, a person who has a darker side of the story concealed, kept in concealment, I feel that they should not lead the Nagas. So I took the opportunity today and I would like to make myself clear before the Nagas, before God and before the world, and let them take their own judgment. So in the year 2015, we abrogated the ceasefire with the government of India, and we went back to the war path. I crossed over to the Naga Myanmar area. I was stationed there for at least 3 to 4 years. The environment is such that it happens to be a location where it is close to Golden Triangle. And even in the Naga area still now, opium cultivation is a source of income. Opium itself is a cash, it's a currency, it's a food. Even the church members, because of the lack of economic development in the area, opium is still used as a currency of exchange. During my graduation and post-graduation day, I have already become a social drinker. I also had a brief stint in the media. Even though I do not have a media certificate of media diplomat certificate, I also did my internship at IAMC Delhi under the patronage of the Nagaland University. And then after I joined the Naga struggle, gradually as I've said, when we crossed over to Naga Myanmar area after the abrogation of ceasefire, we were placed in such an environment where the temptation was too strong, and because of the lack of any other amenities or medical facilities, I became addicted to opium. And gradually it progressed to heroin. So I was addicted to opium and heroin for at least 3-4 years while there in Burma. But the crisis erupted in the NSN government due to the sudden expiry of SS Kaplang. So I would like to make a connection with that. In the year 2017, SS Kaplang expired suddenly. And our former President Baba Khango, he was also stationed somewhere away from the council, which was located in the Taka area. I was also deployed somewhere in the border area. So while going down to SS Kaplang's funeral, I happened to meet our Baba Lieutenant General, former President Baba Khango, at Khamti. And so before we proceed down to Taka for the funeral of our president, we already received the news that the incumbent Army Chief General Kumchop has been appointed as the interim president. So it was a very shocking news because the incumbent vice president was Baba Khango, and even before we reached the federal spot, they have already elected the interim president. And therefore, I convinced him not to worry about it because we have the constitution and the constitution will speak. And therefore, we proceed down, and then I convinced the interim president's son, who was also working with us. I spoke to the Pangmi leaders, I spoke to Konyak leaders, I spoke to Sumi leaders there in the council, and then I offered my advice that until that day we achieve our victory, until the day the struggle culminates into victory, we should be guiding our forces, we should be directing our forces, and we should ourselves abide by the Constitution, or else there will be no more law and order, there will be no more order, and there will be no more, the sanctity of the government will no more be there, and the ethos of the revolutionary struggle will erode. And therefore we must abide by the Constitution. Somehow we convinced them, and Baba Khango was appointed as the president. In that time, he can testify to that as to what extent I tried to diffuse the conflict in that time also. And so, for a year, he served as the president. But since he cannot acclimatize himself with the hot weather down there in the valley, so he went back to his previous camp. He entrusted one of his PS to carry out his activities. And then it seems he gave certain uncomfortable directive to the finance workers. So it seems there was some miscommunication. And therefore, especially the Pangmi leaders, they convened an emergency meeting, and then all of a sudden they impeached the president. And when the impeachment of the president reached me, I was stationed far away from Baba Khango. And then Baba Khango, since he has been expelled, especially at the instigation, especially with the plan of the Pangmi leaders, and since the majority of the Naga inhabited areas are settled by the Pangmis, so he decided to leave Pangmi area and then escape to his Konyak area. So it seems his nephew, who is a Kilonsor now with us, he was the only Kilonsor with him, and some of his boys, they somehow managed to reach his Konyak area safely without any untoward incident. And then I was told that since there was no telephonic facility also, we could not communicate. So when some of the Konyak community leaders, they crossed over the border and reached me, we had certain interaction and we met some strategies. I wrote a confidential letter and sent it to Baba Khango, saying that until and unless I reach there, give no press statement, make no commitment, whatever may be the approach from different factions, give no response, just wait for me. I sent a confidential letter to Baba Khango through the ex-Konyak Student Union General Secretary. They can testify. And so before reaching Baba Khango, I communicated with the GHQ, and then the GHQ camp commander and all the high-ranking officers in the GHQ, they agreed to my proposal. That since the Nagas from Indian side, they are all longing for an early solution. And even though we Nagas are all brothers, The Nagas are already divided by an artificial boundary, and the Nagas are primarily divided into Myanmar Nagas and Indian Nagas. So it is not conceivable at the moment that there will be a one solution for all the Nagas. That became impossible. And so I reasoned with them, for the time being, the Nagas of Indian side, let us go for a settlement with the government of India. In the meantime, we can also assist in whatever manner and help the Naga brothers in Myanmar to have a solution with the Myanmar government. So that when the time comes, the Nagas may once again, may try to work out Indo-Naga-Myanmar issue in one table, tripartite negotiation. That's what I proposed. And with the blessing of God, without any violence or without any misunderstanding, the majority of the Nagas from the Indian side, we all went on one day, and we went, after trekking jungle, we went together to reach Baba Khango camp. After that, I went to the border where I could avail the phone facility, and then I contacted the Indian leaders, and I gave them the commitment that give us 2 days, 2 weeks or 3 weeks time. Within that time frame, I will organize my colleagues and gathers, and we will try to enter into the negotiation. But even before that, the government of India has been sending their feelers to come over and enter into the abrogated peace process. So that was a brief past history. With that addicted state, I don't find myself in a position to cross over in such a manner. So I called over my wife. He came with all the first aids, all the medicines. And for at least 2-3 weeks, I had a very excruciating ordeal. But finally, I managed to give up heroin. And then we crossed over to Indian side. But since the recovery is a long process, gradually I started drinking again. And at least for a year, I was heavily entangled in drinking. But then there was a lot of dissatisfaction. There was a lot of mistakes I started committing. So I realized that in order to bring changes, I should change myself. And so, thinking so seriously about myself and my role as a representative of the Nagas negotiating with the government of India, I had to re-evaluate myself. I have to set an example myself. I have to set an example for my comrades and others to follow. So I took the firm decision that I shall no longer indulge in these things. And with God's grace and with the support of my wife, my family, and my friends, after undergoing treatment for several times, I finally gave up all the abuses, substance abuses, alcoholic addiction, and then it's been 2 years now that I have been freed from all these kind of antisocial characters.